I want to talk about finalization and completion. It's good to not believe in an afterlife, because otherwise you would make an excuse and say, leave it all up to God. God can judge people in the final judgment after the resurrection. But the Bible might be metaphorical, and most people who are sane don't believe God's heaven and hell is like the Clangers planet with the soup dragon and the clangers. They think you've got to have justice now in this life, so they work towards that and strive towards that. But they don't always get justice. But what I'm saying is it is important for responsible people to stop thinking everything's got to be sorted out in this life, and to entertain the possibility that Jesus said that he died to destroy death, which would mean that if death was destroyed, then life just carries on, because after you're resurrected, it's as though everything you've worked towards justice-wise, whether you've achieved it or not, is the same state you're in when you arrive there in the Clangers planet or with the soup dragon. And so it's no different. It's as though it's still this life. But what I'm saying is it is lucrative for people to start thinking it's not the Clangers planet and the soup dragon wistful thinking of pipe dreams, thinking that there's an afterlife. Because people strive and make plans and work towards getting justice and strive and struggle to get rewards and punishments, and good people rewarded and evil people punished, and there to be justice and judgment in life. And that's what life is all about. And so they don't believe there's an afterlife, because that's irresponsible to think that God's going to sort it all out and we don't have to do anything. We can be passive. But what I'm saying, that's actually wrong. It is important to entertain in your mind the possibility that what Jesus did was literal, and there is an afterlife and a resurrection and a final judgment. Because it's still important that all the work we do in this life, trying to get justice and trying to expose evil people and protect good people, and try and help so that good people have a good life and evil people get stopped. Even if we don't achieve justice and poor people go hungry and they don't get fed, or they die of disease when they're young through no fault of their own, if you believe the possibility of a resurrection and a final judgment, you don't have to believe in it, but you can believe in the possibility for it to be. Then all the work you do to try and get that judgment in this life, if it's seamless to the next life, is all evidence and work that has contributed to the final judgment that would occur after the resurrection. So whether you achieve God's justice and judgment in life is not then limited by your own efforts of having to succeed if you can't succeed, because you've still got that sparkle, that twinkle in your mind that God still might use all the good work you've done to try and get justice as evidence for his court after the resurrection in the final judgment. So everything we do in this life is important, because we should see the afterlife and the final judgment as part of this life, as the continuation of this life. And we should try and achieve that judgment and that justice in this life by using the Bible to understand what God believes about justice and about things and about people and about judgments. And so we can do the work for him. And I'm not saying that by mistake. I mean that we can do the work for him We can do that work to make the court in this life for God to finally make the judgment. But we can make that judgment too in this life on God's behalf using the Bible and understanding the correct interpretation of it, because there might not be an afterlife and a final judgment. And we have to act as though there won't be one, to do all that work to get justice now. But it's important to accept the possibility that there's an afterlife, so that if you don't get everything justly done now according to God's character of his being loving and caring and just and giving justice to people, then you're still allowing for the possibility for that to finally happen in the afterlife. And you would all the more do the work that you need to do required in this life to cause there to be justice and to make a final judgment. And if you couldn't take your last 7 breaths to do that because you had a heart attack and you couldn't bring the judgment to conclusion, by trying to do it, you're not exasperated wondering whether you're going to achieve it or not, because you're allowing the fact that there might be, God still might judge evil people who are not judged in this life, even though you spend your whole life trying to get justice. So it is important to accept the possibility that what you do in this life isn't futile. If you can see no light at the end of the tunnel for all your endeavors to get justice in this life for people and to help the poor and to help the dying and to help the weak, and you think, what's it all for? Everything is meaningless. By believing that there might be a resurrection and a final judgment, you're allowing the possibility to your own hope to feel all the endeavors you're doing are worth it. And also it's a question of the fear of the Lord, because if you believe the Lord is going to step in after this life, you go through to the next life through Jesus's death, of him in his body destroying death, and be resurrected for God's final judgment, then everything you've worked towards in this life will contribute towards that. And you've done your best to try and bring that justice now, which is all helpful to God when he makes his final court and he makes his final judgment. And that gives you the fear of the Lord, because the fear of the Lord means that then you believe that God really does believe in justice, and that it's worth your while striving to get it, because that's what God is like. And to bear in mind that God still might judge the wicked one day, even if you try and get them judged in life and don't succeed. You've still then got the possibility to believe it still might happen. And it's not for us to work out how God resurrects people or raises them from the dead or gives a final judgment. And we should regard this life as seamless with the next life. So we should get people to heaven now in life if they deserve to go to heaven, or to hell now in this life if they deserve to go to hell. And if we do all that work on God's behalf, then 90% of it is done in this life. And all God has to do is knock his gavel down on his little bench and say, thank you for helping me. I'm now pronouncing my final judgment. Or if you didn't manage to get the bad people who ruined your life punished, you've done a lot of work for me that I can now carry that through and cause it to happen. And I think that's a healthy view, just to have the sparkle in the back of your mind that there might be ultimate final judgment and ultimate final justice, even though it's up to us to act on God's behalf to bring it about now. and to believe this life is all there is and there is no afterlife, but to still accept healthily the possibility that God might have a final judgment.